I just took Old Faithful out for a ride. I haven't been riding much at all for quite some time, so I was going to go out on some nice gentle roads out and about, take a little video and take some pictures, but while I was out riding I watched the temperature gauge go up and then come back down. What? I've never heard of that. I did unplug and then plug back in the wire on the sending unit, temperature sending unit, and it didn't do any good. The temperature gauge kept coming down. So I pulled over and I had the bike running. I looked, I had no headlight, so I said, okay, time to go home. Let's see what we have here, measuring the battery voltage. 8.97, that's not very good. Start it up and see what it says. No power valve noise when I turn the key on. That's not good. That's not charging too well. At least something wrong with the stator. Charging circuit, obviously. Got the battery tender hooked up. I think the battery will recover. It's a fairly new battery. 72920. I've checked all the fuses. I pulled out the headlight fuse. I had the battery charger disconnected, and I went ahead and turned the ignition key on because I wanted to check and see if there was some sort of dead short on the battery, and there wasn't. So next we'll be checking the stator. Yeah, I've done a little rework here. I need to check the 3 white wires and see what kind of resistance I get off of the stator coils. I was just getting ready to measure the resistance on the stator coils, and I found my problem. Hopefully you can see that. 2 of the 3 white wires, this is coming from the stator, and this is the out side coming out of that connector, and 2 of those 3 white wires looks like they had a very bad connection, and they're disconnected, they're gone. Let's see if I can dig up some white wire out of my scraps and just replace all 3 of those wires. It looks like they just go from there, from that connector, through the harness over to this connector that I've had to repair previously. I have a replacement connector for this guy. I don't have this specialized connector. I'm going to have to see if I can find both ends of this thing at Vintage Connections or something. In the meantime, I did find some new wire I can put into this harness to replace these 3 AC wires from the stator. I need to cut back my tape job that I did when I rebuilt this thing recently, carefully. Let me see if I can get this last wire getting pulled out. I'm having a little trouble with this one. The idea is to push this little tab down. This one's just giving me a little trouble. More than a little trouble. Oh, that's one way. See, I've taken all of this off of the harness so that I can get to these white wires. Just a big tangled mess. There we go. Old wires, new wires. Old melted wires. Let's see about getting this a little bit tidied up. I still need to source this dang special 4-pin connector if I can't find it, I'm going to have to just use a different 4-pin connector, which is alright. I'm going to go ahead and measure the resistance across the stator coils. This little 4-pin connector here, you see me wiggling with my hand. The manual says measuring 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then 3 to 1, we should have 0.4 ohms. So this is the 3 white wires coming from the stator, and it says 0.4 ohms. 1 to 3, 0.5, switches to 0.4. Here's 2 to 3. You have 0.4 ohms. 3 to 1, you have 0.4 ohms. The stator coil resistance is good. I was a little bit concerned that riding it around like that without this, basically without having the stator hooked up, plugged in, whatever, with the wires broken, it might damage the stator, but it didn't, so that's good news. Next up, we'll be taking the remainder of these spade lugs out of this connector, crimping all new lugs onto these 6 wires and the mating 6 wires here, and then installing a new connector. All of this stuff, these connectors and pins, lugs, come from Vintage Connections. There we go. Gonna cut and strip and crimp. These 6 wires are going in and coming out of the rectifier, which converts the AC from the 3 white wires into DC. It's not the most brilliant, bright copper. Jeez. I don't know if you can see the dust coming off of that. What I've done in the past on wires like this is get some muriatic acid and very carefully dip these wires into the acid, and it'll clean all the crud off, a little bit corroded, and I would feel better about having nice clean copper in there. These are brand new wires, tinned copper. These wires look to be in much better shape. I went and got a little teeny tiny bit of muriatic acid. I already did this, but I forgot to turn the camera on. But I stripped this red wire back. This is the only wire that had some serious oxidation on it. And I'm wearing safety glasses, by the way. And I just take the copper part and dip it in the muriatic acid like so. And it'll clean all the crud off of the wire, off of the bare copper conductor. And it'll look like new again. So I'll have a nice good connection on there. Dry this wire off so I don't flick that thing into my eye, because that's the next thing that'll happen. Now I can crimp the lugs on there. I think I'll get rid of this little cap full of acid first. So I'm crimping these lugs on here. Put these guys in here. Get it started. Feed the wire in there. I am having to use the 16-14 gauge side of the crimper to get it started, and then use the other one. These lugs are just super thick. Either that or I'm just super weak. And then I put it in the 18 gauge one and give it another squeeze. There you go. See, there's a little bit of wire coming through the end, and the insulation, well, the bare wire gets crimped here, the insulation gets crimped here. I do recommend using a high quality tool. Again, this whole kit got a whole bunch of stuff from Vintage Connections, including this crimper. Debating whether to solder all these too. I did decide to go ahead and solder these. Why not? It'll take a few more minutes. I feel a little better about them, the longevity. I'm going to turn the camera off, but you get the idea. I have one more here, 6 more here, and 8 more wires over in this area, over there. Here's the old one, here's the new one. They look a little different, don't they? I got all of these wires in this side of the connector. Now we're going to match up the colors with the opposite side of the connector. A black wire, snap. A brown wire. Three whites. 1, 2, 3. Now this guy should plug into this guy, right? Like so. Snap. So that part of it's all reworked. This is the 4-pin connector coming up from the stator. I'm going to replace it with this connector. And the other side is here. I don't know if that's going to show up. Looks like it will. I'll replace that one with this guy because I haven't been able to find these OEM Yamaha connectors. So I'm just going to have to do my own thing here. And if the stator ever requires replacement, I'll have to put another one of these guys on. I'm going to solder these very carefully. Click. Click. That one's going to give me a little trouble. I'm going to have to play around with it a little bit. It won't stay in there. There's no click. I just need to pull this little tab up right here and get it to seat in there properly. There. All 4 of those are seated. Get this blue wire so it marries up with the blue wire in its mating connector down here. This guy goes like that. I need the blue wire here, and then double check that the blue wire is going to the blue wire, and it is. So this connector has been replaced, and this mating connector has been replaced for the stator. There we go. This should be a fix for my charging problem. I'm going to tidy a few things up with tie wraps here. Put the fuel tank back on and start it up. Here's a quick recap. I've replaced this 6-pin connector. Everything is new in there. The connector, the lugs have all been soldered to the wires. This 4-pin connector from the stator has been replaced. Same thing. All new lugs, all the wires have been soldered. We have a charged battery, 12.65 volts and holding. We're ready for a startup. All eyes on the digital voltmeter. I guess I should turn the fuel on. That might help a little bit. Oh, it chokes. If I can get up here and do this without flipping my Harbor Freight liftover. I think we have a success story here. Damn smoky things.